and welcome to C Squared, reviews beyond the speed of light. This time, as you can probably guess, we're reviewing Ant-Man
and the Wasp.
In fact, we just returned from the theater. Karma, what did you think?
Well, first I want to give a little bit of background.
Oh.
The last time we saw Ant-Man, of course there was a first Ant-Man movie, but then he made an appearance in Avengers Civil War.
Captain America Avengers Civil War. Yeah.
I guess
it was Captain America Civil War was the title, but it was an Avengers movie.
Okay. Well, you know what I mean.
Civil War. He appeared
in Civil War, being on one side of the Avengers, helping the others. And then, of course, in Civil War, they introduced the concept of the something accord, where
the Sokovia Accord.
Sokovia Accord, where now people who have superpowers aren't allowed to use them. It's illegal to use them, and so they're all running and hiding. But Ant-Man was caught, and that's how this movie starts. He is under house arrest.
He surrendered. We previously discussed Avengers Infinity War, where you have Captain America, the Falcon, Black Widow, Scarlet Witch are on the run.
Right.
And after getting helped out by... No, Vision had stuck with the rest of the Avengers with Iron Man and War Machine at the end of the previous Avengers movie. Because the idea is they're kind of sneaking off, seeing each other.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, and they mention in that movie that both Hawkeye and Ant-Man had been on the run briefly, and then they both surrendered because they have families.
Right.
Hawkeye's married with kids, and Scott Lang, Ant-Man, is divorced, but he has a little girl
that he loves very much.
So they surrendered.
Yeah.
As a way so they could get part of their life back. And so as Ant-Man and the Wasp opens, Scott Lang, Ant-Man, has been under house arrest for, what did they say,
almost 2 years.
2 years.
And he's got 3 more days before his 2 years is up. And that's when the Wasp hits the fan.
Nice.
So what happens is he goes to take a bath. And as he's in the bathtub, he has this dream of Mr. Pym's wife, the Wasp.
The original Wasp.
The original Wasp.
In the first Ant-Man movie, we discovered that back in, I think it was the 1950s or 60s, Hank Pym was the original Ant-Man and invented all the Ant-Man technology. And his wife, Janet Van Dyne, was the original Wasp.
Right.
And in this...
And
later in this movie, you find out the whole story about how they were trying to stop a rogue missile that was going to destroy...
Actually, the movie opens that way because that was a flashback to the original Ant-Man movie, because I remember those scenes from the original Ant-Man movie.
And so, in trying to stop it, the original Wasp shrunk herself down so far that she got lost in
the quantum whatever it is.
Realm.
Quantum realm.
And she's been missing for 30 years now, and Pym thought she was dead.
Right.
Because he thought that if you shrink that small, you can't come back. But then in the first Ant-Man...
Ant-Man does shrink that small, but because he has such a strong desire to be with his daughter, he's able to bring himself back. And this gives Professor Pym an idea that maybe
she's still alive.
Maybe we
can get her.
And maybe we can get her. So the whole movie is about... The main storyline is they're creating this quantum tunnel so they can go rescue the wife. Well, that's when enters all these other extra characters that up the tension.
So Scott is taking a bath and he has a dream about the original Wasp.
The original Wasp, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, who is looking fantastic. This woman is aging so well.
Yeah. And so even though he was only got 3 days left on his house arrest, he calls Henry Pym and says, hey, I had this weird dream about your wife. I don't know if it means anything.
Yeah.
And then the Wasp, the current day Wasp, which is the original Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne's daughter, who we met in the first Ant-Man movie.
Exactly.
Shows up and basically kidnaps him from his house.
Yes.
And says, we need your help to try and rescue my mom.
And they program an ant to mimic his movements in the house.
Because he's got one of those ankle...
He's got an ankle thing
that warns him. And you get I guess he's an FBI agent who shows up every time he accidentally puts his foot out to...
well played by the actor who also happens to play the father in Fresh Off the Boat, which is a sitcom about an Asian American family.
This is a really rambling, incoherent review so far, because we keep interrupting each other. We should tell the plot first.
Well, I got there. It was like, so the whole plot is they're building this quantum tunnel, and then enters in all these characters that add tension. So let's go over each of these extra elements one at a time.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of them.
The first element is
the FBI.
The FBI is keeping a watch on Scott, and they're pretty sure he's still in touch with the Pims. He actually hasn't been.
Yeah.
But they don't believe him.
Right.
And so then, of course, he does call them, and 3 days! With 3 days to go, they do come and get him. So the FBI is led by Jimmy Woo, Agent Woo, is one group of antagonists.
And then you've got this, like, what do you call it? Dark market, the black market tech selling guy who's been helping supply the Pims with technology, but now he wants that technology because he wants to sell it to a highest bidder. And they're like, no, we're using this to save my mom.
Since we're doing this, he's played by Walton Goggins, who some of you may remember as being the totally out of control, sleazy cop from The Shield.
Oh, I didn't know.
Some
years
back.
Yeah.
And he plays a sleazeball really well.
Yeah, he's a brilliant sleazeball, really. He plays very well.
So the Wasp is bargaining with him to get this one component they need. And then enters yet another protagonist, the Ghost.
The Ghost.
Who has quantum phasing technology that lets her become desolid.
And actually, it's more than technology.
Yes, and we find out later.
She was in an accident that, like, totally screwed up her quantum whatever.
Lets her walk through walls and stuff.
And it's painful, and she wants to be cured. And she's discovered through the help of yet another character. Played by Lawrence Fishburne. That if she extracts energy from the mother...
Who's still lost in the quantum realm.
Who's still lost in the quantum realm. This
may heal her.
Of course, it may also kill the mother. So there's that element going through it, too. This is really complex.
Is there... I think that's about it. Except that Walton Goggins also has another contact at the FBI, who's not Jimmy Woo, who is more antagonistic.
So basically, at every
point... So you've got, a half dozen or more of these different... plot threads and character threads.
It's either the FBI or this mafia guy or the Ghost, who's constantly making it hard for them to rescue the mother.
And you've got three antagonists. You have at least two storylines.
Yes.
Going on with Ant-Man is on the run. The Pims are on the run. They're trying to construct this tunnel. They've got an entire building that they can shrink down to the size of a briefcase.
And they keep all their cars in one of those Hot Wheels
thing. So there's a lot of fun with changing sizes. And we didn't even mention Luis.
Yeah,
Luis, who from the first Ant-Man movie is kind of like Scott's business partner.
They're starting a new security business.
And so he and his crew get mixed up in this.
Oh, and that's brilliant, because there's the Russian guy from the first movie. And so as soon as they start talking about the ghost, he's like, Baba Yaga! Baba Yaga! So that was sort of a little thing. But I think the brilliant part is one of the things I really liked about the first Ant-Man movie was this whole gag where Luis would be talking about everybody else's voice, and they would show the person talking with Luis's voice.
And he just rambles on.
Because he rambles on, like I am. But they were able to work that in this brilliant little moment. It was wonderful.
Taking a step back from this gush of stuff we've just put out there, which probably won't make sense to a viewer unless you've actually seen Ant-Man and the Wasp yourself. This all sounds insanely convoluted.
Right.
Where this movie is really good is all the pieces really do fit together.
Yes, they do.
Describing it like this, you'd think, man, there's way too much going on here. They must drop the ball at some point. But they really don't. Every piece fits together pretty well.
I mean, it kind of sounds like, what was it, Batman and Robin, where you had Mr. Freeze and you had like 10 million different...
you had all these different elements, and none of them worked.
And none of them worked, and you ended up
with
this...
too many of them all piled into one movie.
And you ended up with a hot mess of a movie. And there were several of them that you did that. So you were thinking about... But this one, I don't know what they did to do it right, but they did it right.
Yeah.
It all worked. It all wove in together. It was funny. It was action-packed. There was a little bit of love and romance. Romances.
As with the first Ant-Man movie or the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I think it works because it's not a flat-out comedy, but there's more comedic elements. It's not as dramatic as For the Dark World or something.
Yeah.
So they play it a little looser, and that works. It helps that it's like a juggler keeping all these balls in the air.
Exactly. An expert juggler.
Just like watching an expert juggler, it's a real treat.
Yeah.
And not only are you having fun in the moment when you watch this movie, but when you step back and think about it, it's like, wow, they kind of kept all the balls in the air, and it all worked. It all really worked.
It worked.
One or two little pieces that I enjoyed, particularly about the movie, there's not direct, obvious callbacks, but there's a lot of callbacks to some of the really classic Ant-Man comic books, even back to the 60s and certainly into the 70s. Back then, they would often refer to the original Ant-Man, Hank Pym. Here it's Scott Lang, but they would often call him the Master of Many Sizes. Mm-hmm. And you get to see that in this movie. A lot of times he's ant-sized. Sometimes he's quantum-sized. He's subatomic. There's a scene or two where he's the size of a little kid.
Yeah. Oh, that was funny.
There's a couple of scenes where he's a giant. He's Giant Man.
Yeah.
Again, which is fun. Another piece I liked, you won't know this, but the character played by Lawrence Fishburne, Bill Foster, who, if you know your old comics, was Black Goliath. Or these days we just call him Goliath because it was a bad trait of comic books in the 60s and 70s that whenever you had a black character, you called him Black something.
Whatever.
It works with Black Panther. It doesn't really work with any of the others.
Right.
But anyway, he's in there, and he has sort of one line where he says, yes, I used to work with Pym as part of the Goliath project.
Right, yeah.
So... And they imply that at one point he grew to giant size too.
Right.
So that's a nice little throwaway gag. He doesn't change sizes. He doesn't do a lot with that. But he's also played as an extremely sympathetic character.
Yes,
he's helping the Ghost, who's a villain, but then you find out about her tragic backstory. So he comes off as a very good guy. Basically, he doesn't get along with Hank Pym. Mm-hmm. But as you notice through all these Ant-Man movies, it kind of seems like, with the exception of his wife and daughter, pretty much nobody gets along with Hank Pym because Hank Pym is kind of a jerk.
Yeah. He's one of those classic, I am so smart, if you can't keep up to me, you're not worth my time kind of guys.
Which isn't exactly how he was played in the comics, but Hank had his share of
and Michael Douglas does such a brilliant...
And he does. Michael Douglas is good in that part.
I mean, I think the strengths of this movie is you've got people who are really well cast.
Yes.
I mean, Paul Rudd as the Ant-Man is so believable as the loving, bumbling father.
Yes, he is.
And you can see the heroicness at the same time that he's kind of inept. And so you can see why the Wasp, who's a way more competent, and played by Evangeline Lilly, who used to be in Lost.
Right.
And
she was like super competent in that too, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't she the one with the bow and arrow?
Well, she was an ex-con.
Oh, okay.
Because she'd killed her father because he was a jerk.
All right, okay. But anyway, she comes off as way smarter and more competent than but Ant-Man has genuine heart. And what you see throughout the movie, at one point he has a line where he's talking to his daughter. And he's apologizing to her, saying, I wasn't supposed to go off and be Ant-Man again, and now I could be in trouble, and that means that if I go back to prison, I won't get to see you, and I didn't do right by you. And the little girl says, well, you were trying to help people, and that's a good thing. Yeah. And he says, yeah, but I'm not very good at it. And he says, and if I do that, and then the little girl says, well, you should go help the Wasp. Yeah. And he says, well, if I help her, then I'm not doing right by you.
Because I don't know how to help them without hurting you.
Yeah, he comes off as a guy who, can be inept and has made a lot of mistakes in his life. Yeah. But it genuinely has a good heart, and he's constantly trying to do the right thing, which this movie shows maybe more than a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. It isn't always easy. Yeah. To do what's right, especially if you're... if you're not Captain America,
Yeah.
And you're not Thor, and you don't have billions of dollars of technology at your disposal.
You're just a schlub with a shrinking suit.
Yeah. And your mentor hates you.
Yeah. That makes it a little hard. Yeah.
But he's in there trying, and that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
One other thing I have to mention, another little callback to the old comics, the Ghost's origin. The Ghost, I think, was a villain from the old comics. I think originally she was an Iron Man villain, but they mix it up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But also, you get a very brief mention. The Ghost is the daughter of Elias Starr, who in the old comics was Hank Pym's big enemy, Egghead. The evil scientist Egghead. So there's, as is always the case, there's stuff that they put in there that if you're an old comic geek, you go, that's cool. And if you're not, you don't need to know that, but it still works.
Oh, it
still
totally works
perfectly for the story.
And as with all the Marvel Cinematic movies, you want to stay past the credits. Oh, yes. And you may be tempted to leave after the first one, which is actually really important. It ties into Infinity War and potentially the next Infinity War Part 2.
Yeah.
But stay till after the credits, because there's a fun little moment that's just, it doesn't add to the story or any features to it, but it's just a fun moment, kind of like a blooper.
It's like the first Avengers movie. It's like the shawarma gag at the end of the first Avengers.
Or the one where Captain America does the PSA.
The PSAs.
So it's
not
just a little
crucial. Don't want to tell you anything great to the story, but it's
fun. It's fun.
Well, I don't know. What else do we want to say about this?
I had a blast watching
it. It's a really fun movie to watch.
I mean, I loved the original Ant-Man.
Yes.
And a lot of times the sequel is just not as good. Kind of like The Incredibles was awesome, but The Incredibles 2 was good, but not...
Yeah, I'd say that they're pretty much on par, because the first Ant-Man movie was very much like this one. It wasn't great in the way that the first Avengers movie or Captain America was great, but it was a lot of fun. And this perfectly captures that same tone again.
Exactly. Yeah. They go well together. They were able to stay. And I think a lot of that has to do with the quality of the actors they got to play the role.
Oh, heavens, yes.
I mean, you've got Michael
Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, briefly, but in her few scenes, she's really good.
Oh,
she's really good, and you're right.
And she's aging really well.
She's rocking the white hair.
Yeah.
Not a lot of women can do that, but she totally does.
Yeah.
Evangeline Lilly, Paul Rudd, Michael Pena is
Luis.
Lawrence Fishburne
from The Matrix.
And I don't know if there are other name actors that we're not thinking of. Walton Goggins, I guess. But everybody's good.
Yeah.
You even get to have a glimpse again of Scott Lang's ex and her new husband that the little daughter Cassie stays with when she can't be with Scott. And unlike the first movie where there was this friction and she didn't like him because he was an ex-con, here they're all buddies, and I guess they all know he's Ant-Man.
Yeah, well, they found that out at the end of the last movie.
Yeah, I didn't remember.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they know he's not supposed to be being Ant-Man now, but they all know he did that. And they're all chummy. And there's even a funny little gag where he shows up, and his ex will give him a little hug. And then the ex's husband comes in and hugs him.
I wanted a hug too, so...
Which is weird, but it's funny.
It's funny,
It's a funny deal.
I say this is a good, solid 3-planet
Absolutely, absolutely. It's an entertaining picture, and if you go see it, we hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.
Hi, and welcome to C Squared. This time, what are you doing?
I want to make sure you to stop banging the table like you did in...
I only did that in the Fantastic Planet
and
review.
Jurassic World.
And Solo. But that's all.
I know. We haven't listened to... Maybe. This way...
How can I thump for emphasis now?
Tough patootie, sweetie. Think of just visualizing thumping.
That's disgusting. We have kids watching these reviews.
Well, no, it's kind of like, instead of putting a filler word like,
I object. Ready?
Oh, wait, hang on.
Too hot?
It's too hot, but I still want to have my hair down.
Oh, you look good.
Yeah, I do.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.